taking off like a missile. Yeah, I'm validated, but it ain't about no people. Ain't no number two, what it look like a pencil. God drew on the plan, then gave me the stencil. Slide, you know I run with the pride. All of my homies some lines, all of them listen to God. Never gonna be my demise, even with pressure applied, even with...
Back in the day, when I would go to Sunday school, they had these things called flannel graphs, right? And this ginormous fish would come out, and then Jonah would be like swallowed up by it, and he'd be like, oh my word, where did he go, right? So anyway, Jonah is a classic tale that we have all heard. It's actually not just a tale, it's a true story that happened in the Bible. But I want you to think about it differently, and we're going to even start this a little bit differently. Who in here likes to be in control? You like to have control, okay? Come on, raise it proud. If I could raise all of my fingers and toes, I would raise it. I love being in control. How many has everybody made a bad decision? Okay, everybody can raise their hand to that one, okay? Now, when you marry control and making a bad decision together, you have Jonah, okay? So Jonah really, really wanted to do his own thing, really badly. And he made a decision that was a poor one. So he made a wrong decision, and when those moments occur, when you like to be in control and then you make a bad decision and someone finds out about it, typically your response is not compassion from the other person, right? So if you make a bad decision, it ruins somebody else's kind of deal, and then you just keep holding on to that decision. Usually that ends really, really poorly, and then it usually ends with somebody being really mad at you, and then they don't really show you a whole lot of compassion. So enter in Jonah. Jonah was called by God to go to Nineveh. So we're going to be just in Jonah 1, just to let you know. And if you don't know where Jonah is in your Bible, it's right after Obadiah, and it is right before Micah. It's in the Old Testament. It's after Psalms. So if you go halfway to your Bible and then you keep kind of going forward, you really actually might miss it, because in my Bible, it is literally one page, okay? 2 if you count both sides. So if you don't know where Jonah is, go to the index. My book, it's 864. It's okay. Don't be ashamed of having to do that. God called Jonah to go to Nineveh because he was to call out the sins that Nineveh were partaking in. But instead, Jonah decided that he was going to go his own route. And in taking that own route, some of us can relate to this on many levels, right? Pride keeps in. You want to make your own decision. You start going your own route. And things started to go really, really wrong for Jonah, okay? So I'm just going to read this to you because I want to make sure that I catch you all up on kind of what happens in the story of Jonah. So most of you know it, but I want to quickly fill you in on kind of what goes down. Jonah decides that he knows more than God, is basically the decision that he makes, and he doesn't want to fulfill the command that God gave to him to go to Nineveh. Instead, he hops on a boat going to Tarshish, okay? Not Nineveh. He's not supposed to go there. He's supposed to go to Nineveh. While on the journey, the Lord causes the seas to become very, very violent. Waves crashing, you can imagine, right? Being on an old boat way back in the day, scary. Can't even imagine being on a cruise ship and that beginning to happen, and we've come a long way since this boat was built. So waves are crashing. Men are fearing for their lives. They find out Jonah's running for God, so what do they decide? They decide to throw him overboard. So Jonah gets thrown overboard into the sea, and the seas immediately what? They calm. Okay, we all know this part of the story. Then what happens? He gets swallowed by a what? Who thinks it's a whale? Who thinks it's a fish? Who thinks it doesn't matter he got eaten by an animal in the sea? Yeah, that's what I agree. Okay? A fish swallows Jonah, and he's in the belly of the fish for 3 days, and he gets spat up on the land, right? That's what we know the story of Jonah to be. Yes? Yes. Well, I'd love to tell you that the story is actually not about Jonah. It's not at all about Jonah. It's actually entirely about God. And I actually want to tell you, all these stories that you read in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, they're all about God. The story's not about Jonah. Jonah's in the character of it, sure. Yes, Jonah is a part of the story, yes. But this story is about God, and that's what I want you to see. I want you to see through chapter 1 that God is very compassionate. I want you to see that throughout the entire story of Jonah, actually, I want you to keep this word in your mind. I want you all to say it out loud in just a second. Say compassion. Say it one more time. Compassion. As we're going through Jonah, I want you to have this idea that God is a God of compassion. Or maybe God's a God of mercy is another way to say it. That God extends an extra level of grace. That there's compassion that flows from God in Jonah's story. And if you think about it, they were at sea. It's going nuts. They throw Jonah over. God could have just been like, man, you're not following me, and down to the bottom he goes, right? But no, he sends a fish to swallow him. I was thinking as we were singing that last song, there's no shadow you won't light up, there's no mountain you won't, all that. I'm like, there's no fish you wouldn't send, right? That's what I was thinking, to swallow me up. That's kind of what I was thinking whenever you're singing that song. I don't know if that's biblical or right, but that's what goes through Alex Anderson's mind, okay? So I want you to see in this story, though, that me and you are Jonah. That me and you are just like Jonah. That we once were far off. We once, hear this, were running from God. You and I, before we became a Christian, if you're not a Christian right now, if you don't believe in Jesus, man, you are running. You are Jonah. You are running from God. And that's what Jonah was doing in this story. We are all just like him. But here's the reality. Because of God's compassion, he sends a fish to save us. And you might know where I'm going with this, okay? Jesus. Jesus saves you and I. That's how we have everlasting life. Jonah came to the end of himself, and it took being out of control for him to realize that God was in control. And friend, we need to understand that too. We have to understand that our lives are completely out of control without God. Completely. And you're like, man, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. Someone else is in control of my life. Let me tell you, friend, you will ruin your life if you think that you can do it all on your own. Some of you are sitting in the exact predicament that I am talking about right now. A lot of us, and if you're like me, I'm a hard-nosed, prideful, selfish individual. I want to run. I want to be in control. I want to think that I have it all together all the time and I can do it. I'm a fixer by nature. If it's broken, let's fix it. But I don't want to fix it in a week. I want to fix it right now. And sometimes God's like, it's going to take a year to fix that. And you just got to wait and be patient. And I don't like that. I love being in control. But here's what I want to encourage you with. There's a reason that the band sang that song, because I truly want you to understand that if you think that, or if you know, actually, that you're running, like you're like, yeah, right now, man, I'm arguing with my parents all the time. I am running from God. I don't want to be sitting in this seat, in this youth group, in this sanctuary right now. My parents forced me. They basically kicked me out of the car, okay? Get in there. It's what you're supposed to do. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to go to my small group. I definitely don't want to read this thing. I don't want any of that. Can I just tell you that you're not too far gone? You're not too far off? Can I encourage you that if you think that there is a sin that you have committed that the Lord can't handle, that's not true? Can I encourage you that even if you think that you're like close to being on a boat and being thrown over it because you've just disappointed everybody and you haven't obeyed God, that there's still a remedy to repair that? Man, Jonah was like running. He literally got on a boat to go do the very opposite of what God commanded him to do. In my mind, I'm like, hey, at least you're in the room, right? You didn't run. You didn't end up at the McDonald's instead of sitting here. Now, don't get any ideas, okay? It's happened before. I don't want it to happen again. But friend, I want you to see the God of compassion that's willing to send a fish for you. And you're like, that's a silly analogy. No, for real. Like, I want you to be swallowed up wholly. I want you to understand that God sent Jesus, the perfecter of your faith, to save you. Just like he sent a fish to save Jonah. See, this whole story of Jonah is about God and his compassion and how he loves you and I, and how he's willing to go at whatever cost to save you. And so really, this evening, I just want to make sure that I set up who Jesus is, the gospel, and make sure that you understand what it means to be a follower of Jesus. What that means is, if you are dead in your trespasses and sins, there is a God who is faithful and just to forgive you of that sin. What it means is that you need to put to death what is fleshly in you and put on Jesus. What that means is you have to come to yourself and say, I am a sinner. That's what Jonah did on the boat in chapter 1. He understood when the waves were crashing around him, he went, oh no, this is all my fault. I'm gonna kill these other men on this boat. That's what's gonna happen because of my sin. You have to come to the end of yourself and say, I am a sinner. This is on me. But the beautiful thing is you don't have to earn anything. It's not like Jesus is waiting up there making you earn your salvation. It is a free gift. And all you have to do is say, Lord, here I am. I'm jumping in the water. Please save me, right? That's basically what's happening. Jonah jumps in. He doesn't know what's going to happen. He didn't know that there was a fish. I hope the fish was like 100 feet down, right? I hope it wasn't just like right there with its mouth open. I'm a very visual person. I imagine that Jonah struggled. I really do. Because when we get into chapter 2, into Jonah's prayer while he's in the belly of a fish, there's a struggle happening. Maybe you're even in that struggle right now. But friend, I want you to understand that you need to accept Jesus. And there's nothing that can separate you from that. And I know a lot of us come in here, we probably came to church even this morning, or we watched. We've been to youth group 100 million times, but there's still that thing in you that you're like, you have this desire to run a little bit. There's that thing underneath, that heart of that you have, that just sometimes for you, and I feel this sometimes too, is just this like you have this sin that creeps in and you just want to run because sometimes it seems easier. And friend, it's not. And you need to confess that.
Slide, you know I run with the pride. All of my homies some lines, all of them listen to God. Never gonna be my demise, even with pressure applied, even with